How to build a billion-dollar business, the lean startup method that will change your life. The secret to successful innovation works in every company, at every size. The world is changing faster than ever. If you're not innovating, you're falling behind. Whether you're a startup founder, a corporate leader, or an employee with big ideas, there's a new way to work, to think, and to win. The question is, are you ready to think like a startup? We all know the story. Scrappy startup changes the world, but here's the truth. Startups don't succeed because of luck. They succeed because of the way they think. The biggest myth about startups, it's not about size, it's about speed. The secret of startup, they operate with speed and experimentation. They don't wait for the perfect plan. They launch, learn, and adjust. They test small, fast, and cheap, instead of betting everything on one idea. They treat failure as feedback, not as defeat. The companies that win aren't the biggest. They're the ones that learn the fastest. Why big companies fail and how they can win like startups. What's killing big companies? Bureaucracy slows them down. Fear of failure stops them from experimenting. They prioritize efficiency over innovation. Innovation isn't about having great ideas, it's about creating a system where great ideas can be tested, refined, and scaled. The 3 pillars of the startup way. Here's how startups stay ahead. Continuous experimentation, small, rapid tests instead of long-term plans. Fast feedback loops, learning from customers in real time. Decentralized decision-making, empowering teams instead of relying on top-down leadership. If you want startup results, you need a startup mindset. The death of the 5-year plan. Why companies need to pivot like startups. The problem with traditional business plans. They assume the world won't change. Startups don't follow rigid plans. They pivot based on real-time data. Instead of guessing what customers want, they test ideas in the real world. They embrace change instead of resisting it. The companies that win don't predict the future. They create it one experiment at a time. How to bring the startup way into any business. Ries gives a blueprint for making any company act like a startup. Empower small teams. Give them control over innovation. Let them move fast. Break big projects into small experiments. Test, learn, adjust, repeat. Reward learning, not just success. Encourage teams to take smart risks. The future belongs to those who move fast, learn constantly, and never stop innovating. So the question is, will you operate like the past or create the future? Because in the end, the only way to win is to think like a startup. It doesn't matter if you're a founder, a CEO, or just someone with big ideas. If you want to create something great, you need to adopt the startup way. Can you think like a startup? What if the biggest threat to success is your own thinking? Because the world is changing fast, and if you can't adapt, you won't survive. Big companies are failing, small startups are winning. But why? What makes startups so powerful, and how can any business use their secret? The answer? The startup way. So the real question is, can you think like a startup? We've seen it happen again and again. Big companies fall while small, agile startups rise. But here's the truth. It's not about size, it's about how they think. Why bureaucracy is the death of innovation, the biggest innovation killer. Bureaucracy, slow decision-making, too many layers of approval, too much red tape. Risk avoidance culture, employees fear failure instead of embracing experimentation. Rigid planning. Companies stick to outdated 5-year plans instead of adapting in real time. You can have the best people, the best resources, and the best strategy. But if your system kills innovation, you will lose. How startups create a culture of innovation and how you can too. The startup mindset thrives on 3 key principles: rapid experimentation, test ideas fast, fail small, and learn quickly. Decentralized decision-making, empower teams to act without waiting for approval. Customer-centric thinking, adapt based on real user feedback, not internal assumptions. You don't need to be a startup to think like a startup. The biggest advantage of a startup, every employee acts like an entrepreneur. They take risks, they experiment, they innovate, but in most big companies, employees feel like cogs in a machine. The secret to entrepreneurial employees, it's psychological ownership. The problem? Well, most employees don't feel like owners. They follow orders instead of creating solutions. They fear taking risks because failure is punished. They wait for permission instead of acting with initiative. The solution? Give employees a sense of ownership over their work. Empower teams to take risks without fear of failure. Give employees real control over their ideas and projects. Reward learning and experimentation, not just success. The best companies don't just hire smart people, they give them the freedom to act. How to create an internal startup culture. Here are 3 ways to make employees act like entrepreneurs. Launch internal startups. Let teams develop and test their own ideas. Remove fear of failure. Encourage small risks, fast learning and adaptation. Give teams autonomy. Empower employees to make decisions, not just follow orders. If you treat employees like entrepreneurs, they'll create the future for you. So the question is, will you let your employees think like founders or keep them stuck in the past? Because in the end, innovation isn't about technology, it's about mindset. What if successful companies aren't the strongest, but the smartest? Because in a fast-changing world, the only way to win is to keep innovating. The companies that thrive aren't the ones with the most money, the biggest teams, or the strongest reputation. They are the ones that learn the fastest, experiment the most, and adapt in real time. That's why the startup way isn't just for startups. It's the only way to build a business that survives the future. So the real question is, will you embrace the startup way before it's too late? Most companies know they need to change, but here's the problem. Knowing isn't enough. To survive, they need a total transformation. The problem with traditional leadership is that it kills innovation. Here's why most big companies fail to innovate. They focus on control, not agility. They punish failure instead of encouraging experiments. They think like machines, not like evolving organisms. You can't create the future if you're stuck in the past. How leaders must change to enable innovation. Give power to small autonomous teams. Make speed the priority. Launch, test, and learn rapidly. Shift from top-down management to coaching and enabling. Great leaders don't control innovation. They create the conditions for it to thrive. Innovation isn't a department, it's not a one-time event, it's a system, a way of working that should be embedded in every team. The 4 pillars of an innovation engine. Pillar 1, continuous experimentation. Test ideas in small, fast iterations. Measure success with real data, not assumptions. Fail quickly, adjust, and try again. Pillar 2, fast decision-making. Eliminate red tape. Let teams move quickly. Give decision-making power to those closest to the problem. Encourage action over endless debate. Pillar 3, lean funding and resources. Don't fund projects for years, fund experiments for weeks. Prioritize early results over long-term predictions. Allocate resources based on proven customer demand, not executive opinions. Pillar 4, customer-driven innovation. Build based on real user feedback, not just internal ideas. Launch fast, adjust based on real-world data. Never assume you already know what customers want. Innovation isn't luck, it's a system, and the companies that build it win. So, how do you apply this system in any organization? Ries outlines a step-by-step transformation plan. Step 1. Start small. Pilot an internal startup team to test innovation principles. Step 2. Train teams to work like startups, fast, iterative, and customer-driven. Step 3. Scale the system, embed innovation into every department, every team. The best companies aren't just big or successful, they are adaptable. And adaptability starts with thinking like a startup. So the real question is, will you build an innovation engine before your competition does? Because in the end, the only way to win is to think like a startup. The biggest opportunities in the world don't belong to those who play it safe. They belong to those who take action, embrace change, and innovate relentlessly. What if I told you the most dangerous time for a company is when it's successful, because innovation doesn't die from failure, it dies from complacency. Starting a company is hard, scaling it is harder, but keeping it innovative, that's the ultimate challenge. Because success isn't the finish line, it's the beginning of the hardest battle of all, staying relevant. So the question is, How do you keep innovation alive after you've already won? The biggest mistake companies make: thinking innovation is something you do once. The corporate immune system. Why big companies kill their own innovation. The biggest enemy of innovation? The company itself. Success makes companies resistant to change. They don't want to risk what's working. Bureaucracy slows down bold ideas. Innovation gets lost in approvals and meetings. Executives prioritize short-term profits over long-term vision. If your company fights innovation, then you're already losing. How to keep innovation alive, the three-phase system. Ries introduces the three-phase system for keeping innovation alive. Phase 1, the startup mindset never ends. Even when a company is big, it must act like a startup. Small teams should always be testing new ideas. Innovation should be built into everyday operations, not just special projects. Phase 2, continuous small bets, the 70-20-10 rule. 70% of efforts go to the core business, keeping existing success strong. 20% of efforts focus on adjacent innovations, expanding on current strengths. 10% of efforts focus on radical new ideas, game-changing, risky innovations. Phase 3, leadership must reinforce innovation at every level. Employees should be rewarded for experimentation, not just execution. Leaders must challenge teams to think beyond what's comfortable. Organizations must be willing to kill outdated products before competitors do. The best companies aren't just great at innovation, they're great at sustaining it. How to train your company to reinvent itself. The 5 rules for building an innovation-first company. 1. Treat every team like a startup. Give them the freedom to launch new ideas. 2. Encourage radical thinking. Make it safe for employees to challenge the status quo. 3. Build innovation sprints into the work cycle. Set aside dedicated time for experimentation. 4. Never let a single success define you. Keep pushing for what's next. 5. Kill what isn't working fast. Don't let legacy products or services drag you down. Your company is never finished. If you think it is, you've already lost. So the real question is, will you build a company that stays ahead or one that gets left behind? Because in the end, the only way to win is to keep innovating. Every company has a choice. You can stay safe and fade into irrelevance, or you can embrace change and create the future. The future belongs to those who are willing to act now. Smash that like button if you believe innovation is the key to success. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss the biggest conversations about entrepreneurship and leadership. Turn on the notification bell because the world isn't waiting for you to catch up. Drop a comment below. What's one way you can bring startup thinking into your company?